Today we're going to talk about the undefeated teams left in college football and which of them actually have an opportunity to play in the college football playoff and how that actually interacts with Oklahoma's chances if it wins out, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today we are going to talk about the remaining undefeated teams in college football and their chances of playing in the college football playoff. But first, you can pre-order my book, Let It Bang. It's available wherever books are sold October 23rd. If you go to rjyoungwrites.com, you can find several links to pre-order it from the place of your choosing. I would appreciate it. One of my buddies sent me a listing, and apparently it's like the #1 pre-ordered Kindle book for Southwest United States history. I didn't write a history book, so that's really weird. Okay, so now let's get into the undefeated teams left. And the first one that I gotta bring up is Cincinnati. I didn't know Cincinnati was undefeated until I started going through all of the teams without a loss in the column. I was going, this has to be incorrect, because I watched the Cincinnati team struggle against a really bad UCLA team. And I'm looking at Cincinnati just to see if, that game was at the beginning of the season. Maybe it was just an anomaly. No! They needed to score 13 points to beat Ohio by 4, winning that game 34-30. You know how good the Ohio Bobcats are this year? They're 3-2 with signature wins over UMass and Kent State. Cincinnati, man, even if they go undefeated, I can't see this team getting in the college football playoff. Strength of schedule sucks, man. Now, the kid Desmond Ridder at quarterback, he ain't bad, but he ain't no world beater, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. If you don't follow Cincinnati football closely, you can't name one starter on the Bearcats football team. That's bad. I seriously don't understand how Cincinnati is 6-0. But even if this team were to continue its unbeaten pace, it has ranked games on the schedule with USF, who also is undefeated, who I'll get to in a bit, and UCF. And if they get past USF, I can't see them getting past Central Florida. It ain't happening. But even if they did, and even if Cincinnati goes undefeated and wins the American, they don't have anybody on the schedule that leads you to believe they would get into the college football playoff, because see Central Florida from last year, and Central Florida is probably going to run into that problem this year. They keep this pace up. So I mentioned them earlier, so let's go straight to South Florida, who is also undefeated. Charlie Strong got the boys playing some good football, and Blake Barnett, who's on his 3rd football team, finally looks like a quarterback that can win some games. Now, I pointed to Blake Barnett because that's the guy on this roster that everybody can point to and everybody knows, because he once started some games at Alabama a few years back. But he ain't exactly a Heisman contender, man. He's completing 65% of his passes, but he's only thrown for 1,300 yards in 6 games, and he's got 9 touchdowns to go with 4 picks. If you're looking at USF to see what they do well, you'll see they run the ball pretty well. Jordan Cronkite is the best running back nobody's talking about. He's got 69 carries for over 600 yards. That's 8.8 yards per carry, and he's got 5 TDs. USF at 5-0 is a surprise to me until you go looking at their schedule. First game was against Elon. Tell me where Elon is on a map, fam. Next game is a good win against Georgia Tech. We saw Georgia Tech run up the score against a bad Louisville team. I'll take that. Then they beat up on Lovie Smith in Illinois, who can't seem to catch a break. And then they beat up on East Carolina, a team for which I kind of have an affinity to because, well, the head coach at Oklahoma and the interim defensive coordinator both did stops at East Carolina, so I kind of follow the Pirates. But for the most part, Georgia Tech's the only win on that schedule I can really give USF credit for right now, man. And their schedule was really front-loaded with cupcakes. They've got Tulsa, UConn, Central Florida, and Cincinnati left on the schedule. I don't see them getting out of this with fewer than 2 losses. There's also reason to believe that Ed Oliver and Houston could jump up and bite them. I think USF is about to go into the meat grinder, and this 5-0 start's going to look real silly in December. Okay, the next team we have to talk about is Central Florida. That's Josh Heupel's Central Florida, and he did a very smart thing. He walked into a program that went undefeated last year and said, if it ain't broken, I ain't gonna fix it. Now, I'm sure that most folks who watch this channel are familiar with Josh Heupel and are familiar with him wanting to run his scheme as opposed to running the thing that is best for the players, but Seems like he backed up off of that because, well, he had a ready-made juggernaut in Central Florida, and all they've been doing is scoring points on everybody they play. At 5-0, the toughest game left on the schedule for them in the regular season is against Memphis. I expect them to win that one going away. But even at 12-0, it's really hard to get Central Florida into the college football playoff, even if it would deserve to be in it for a consecutive year, because they don't play anybody that matters throughout the regular season. You need ranked opponents on your schedule, and you need them to traditionally come from power conferences, and UCF just ain't got that. They, like a lot of folks, were counting on Florida Atlantic to be the kind of Florida Atlantic that they were last year. Don't think that Florida Atlantic's going to be anywhere near that good this year, although they'll be good. They also could have used that North Carolina game that got canceled, because while North Carolina ain't very good, it's still a power conference team, and it's still a team that most folks know and respect. That said, if Cincinnati and USF can keep up their pace of going undefeated, those games might have more weight, and that might leave a good enough taste in the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's mouth to let them squeak in at 4, but I don't see it, and I'll get to that in a bit. To date, Colorado beat up on Colorado State, squeaked by a really bad Nebraska team, beat the hell out of the New Hampshire Wildcats, and got a W against Arizona State. Now, I guess folks expect Colorado and USC to be a good game, but folks have been saying USC is going to be a good game for everybody that USC has played, and I ain't seen it, man. So while Washington is probably going to be the proving test for this Colorado team, they still have Washington State on the schedule, which ain't no gimme. And if Utah ever decides that they want to score some points, that team will be a handful too. I also think that Cal has the goods to jump up and bite them at the end of the season. I think Colorado's schedule is sneakily tough, but it ain't that tough. And if they get past Washington, yeah, they stand a chance of going undefeated, but I don't see them winning the Pac-12 championship. Even so, they're not going to get in ahead of these other teams that I'm about to tell you about, the next one of which is West Virginia. West Virginia is the first team for which I'm going to tell you about that I think makes the college football playoff if it goes undefeated. Now, that would also mean West Virginia has to get past Texas Christian and Oklahoma and Texas. I know they got a Heisman hopeful at quarterback in Will Grier, but I also know that Iowa State is their next game, and that ain't no easy win. They got Baylor after Iowa State, and that ain't no easy win. Then there's the gauntlet of Texas, Texas Christian, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma. What I'm saying is, if West Virginia can make it through the rest of its schedule undefeated, they deserve to play in the college football playoff, especially if they win the Big 12 championship on top of that. I just don't see them doing it, man. The Big 12 is incredibly tough this year, and it feels like everybody not named Kansas State can put up points on you if they want to, and Kansas, low-key, has a pretty stout defense. And what nobody really wants to say out loud is perhaps Iowa State is the most balanced Big 12 team this season, which is really weird to say out loud. But yeah, West Virginia could make the college football playoff if it wins all of its games. I just don't see it happening. Next team that we got to talk about is obviously Notre Dame, for which might have the easiest road to the college football playoff left. Toughest game left on Notre Dame's schedule is USC, and I don't know how many folks are really taking USC that seriously at this stage in the game. And while you can make an argument that Notre Dame looked good if shaky with Brandon Wimbush at quarterback, with Ian Book, they look like they've shored up their quarterback position. Brian Kelly made a bold move in sitting a guy who hadn't lost a game for a better guy, which is kind of the way 2018 has gone for the quarterback positions. As a matter of fact, I think Notre Dame would be the biggest hurdle for an Oklahoma team to overcome if Oklahoma won the Big 12 championship. Even if Notre Dame loses a game, I could see folks voting Notre Dame ahead of Oklahoma as a one-loss team to a Notre Dame team that might be a one-loss team. But then you're getting into a whole other kind of calculus, and we're just not going to do that right now. And then there are the 4 teams I and most other folks believe are going to play in the college football playoff today. Those are Alabama, who looks unbeatable. I mean, it looks like the best Alabama football team I've ever seen, which is a scary thought. And then there's Georgia right behind them, who will probably lose to Alabama in the SEC championship, and then get voted in on the merits of the SEC and how good Georgia's defense looks. And then there's Ohio State, who I expect to win the Big Ten championship, although that is not the shoe-in that has always been, especially if Michigan can get it together in a manner in which Jim Harbaugh can do that thing that everybody wants to do, which is beat Urban Meyer at Ohio State. And then, of course, Clemson. Clemson goes undefeated, wins the ACC title game. they're going to be in. Trevor Lawrence looks like the #1 pick in the NFL draft 3 years from now. They look sure on defense. They look like they have enough on offense. Today, it is Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and Ohio State playing in the college football playoff. But anything is possible. And I think if Oklahoma wins out, gives itself an opportunity to be in the mix. But you need one of these 6 teams, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, West Virginia, and Notre Dame, to take a loss. In fact, you probably need 2 of those teams to take a loss for Oklahoma to get a real shot at getting into the college football playoff on the merits of what it has done for the first 6 games and what it might do over the next 6 games. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.